Today we're on a two-part journey about discovering the common sinkholes on your marriage journey, on your marriage road. Whether you're currently married, hoping to be married someday, we want to be aware of the pitfalls, the traps, I call them sinkholes, in the marriage road. This is a picture of a sinkhole, just so you know what I'm talking about. Some of you are like, sinkhole? It's like you're just driving along in your car, minding your own business, boom! And that can happen in a marriage. You're just kind of like bopping around and then boom! And I don't want you to go boom! That would be bad. So, we're going to look at all the common sinkholes that I've become aware of over my many, many years of living, longer than most of you. So, some of these sinkholes honestly are direct attacks from the pit of hell. Others simply stem from our own flawed thinking, but either way, I kind of think, and I think you might agree, that Satan is certainly going to be egging us on, trying to get us sucked into a sinkhole that will destroy our marriage. I know you've heard this verse so many times, but really ponder the warning Jesus gives us about the devil in John 10:10. He says Satan's mission is to steal, kill, and destroy. So if you are a believer, and hopefully those of you on Facebook Live and here at the way, hopefully most of you are believers, Satan would like nothing more than to tear apart your marriage. He would like nothing more. When you really start thinking about it, it kind of makes sense all of a sudden. All the things that keep happening. It's like, Satan is trying to destroy, dismantle your marriage. Pause for a moment. Maybe even just jot down, if you've got a handout here, and you can get the handout online, squadronofsisters.com, click on the Lesson Handouts tab. You can print out the PDF. But maybe pause for a moment and jot down what comes to mind when I say, how has Satan been trying to mess with your marriage? What comes to mind right now? He's up to shenanigans, I can just about guarantee it. Just jot down a thought that comes to you. Doesn't take very long, does it? It's like, oh yeah. So in addition to what just came to your mind, I've noticed many common schemes the enemy uses to try to destroy marriages. So we're going to expose his schemes tonight, and that's actually biblical. Did you know that? In Ephesians 5:11, it says, take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. So we're going to be exposing the dirty, rotten schemes from the pit of hell. Hope that's okay with you. There were too many schemes to fit into one lesson, so you have to come back next week and come back on Facebook Live, because there are 13 schemes in all that are pretty prevalent, pretty common. So we're just going to cover like the first 7 tonight. First scheme, getting you to believe your husband or your marriage is hopeless so that you give up. So that you just give up. It just seems so hopeless. Right? Why even try? It's hopeless. And who is whispering that in your ear? The devil. It's hopeless. Just walk away. So how do you avoid this sinkhole? I'm going to give you some ideas for how to avoid the different sinkholes. So for this one, refuse to agree with the spirit of hopelessness. When you catch that thought entering your head, refuse to align yourself with that spirit of hopelessness. Don't say things like, I'm done. Don't say things like, I'm done. Don't give in too soon. Pray, get other believers to pray with you. With God, all things are possible. Even your hopeless marriage. What you think is your hopeless marriage. Matthew 17:20. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And I have stories I could tell you. I wouldn't have time to tell you all the stories of marriages that looked hopeless, and they have recovered from what seemed like a hopeless situation. I can see a couple people in this room, if we had time, would share their testimony. They probably wouldn't want to do it on Facebook Live, but they could share their testimony of a marriage that seemed blown up. There's much prayer that goes up. Maybe they were praying, other people in their lives are praying, and the marriage all of a sudden improved, changed. The people in the marriage changed. Maybe the husband who was going down the wrong path changed. With prayer, all things are possible. Some of you in this room know what I'm talking about, right?
Amen.
Number 2, and by the way, if you agree with something, if something that is said, or a Bible verse or something said agrees with your spirit, I think we can boldly say, amen. So let's practice that. Amen. Amen. Let's practice that again. Amen. If something agrees with your spirit, let's not just be like, oh, we're so timid here. We're so polite. Forget that. Okay, number 2, the second common scheme. Getting you to believe you've been ripped off and you deserve a different husband, which leads to you beginning to fantasize about being with a different man, who of course would be, well, pretty much perfect. You know, maybe a few little flaws, but so much better than the current model, right? And so you start fantasizing about this man. You know, this started a long time ago in the Garden of Eden. Satan tried to get Eve to think she'd been ripped off and deserved something more that God had given her. Remember the story? Oh, you know, God's withholding the best from you. You probably shouldn't eat from that tree that he said, oh, don't tinker with that tree. But God's holding back on you. You deserve something better. He's been trying this forever. And I think we fall into the same trap. And by the way, it did not end well for Eve. I think we're all aware of that. Pain in childbirth was one of the repercussions. Thank you very much, Eve. I think we fall into this trap so easily because we've been fed this steady diet of romantic fairy tales, romantic comedies, romance novels that paint this picture of this perfect man. And let's see, what is this perfect man like? You can shout this out if you have some idea. The perfect man, well, he never farts. I mean, he doesn't burp. He picks up his socks. He showers regularly. His breath always smells good. He's very romantic. He slays dragons during the day. He's like just the most valiant warrior during the day, but he's oh so tender with you. I mean, can I go on and on? It's like, it's ridiculous. It's poppycock. What is that word? What does that even mean? Poppycock. I don't even know why that came to me, but someone should look that up and Google that. Where did that come from? I don't know. But it's ridiculous. This is not true. This is a fantasy. I can guarantee you, you trade in your husband for a different model that seems so much better, and guess what? This guy might have, you know, might be better in some areas than your husband, but he will have other flaws. Trust me, he will have other flaws. So, how do we avoid this? Well, this is what I think we should do. We take the romance novel and a lighter, and we just light it on fire. We just light it on fire, you know? I'm not really going to burn it down because that probably would be against fire code. But you know what? We need to burn the romance novels and throw out the romantic comedy DVDs. Because even the Christian romance novels, be careful. They paint this picture that is totally unrealistic. Did you know there is not a perfect man walking the face of the earth? It's just not true. And guess what? I know this is going to be startling. There aren't any perfect women either. Just saying.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. Thank you. So to avoid this sinkhole, burn your romance novels. Choose to focus. Okay, don't literally burn them. Don't go and say, Debbie Jonas told us to start fires. No. But choose to focus on what is good about your husband because he does have some good qualities. Train your mind to focus on what is good. Stop fantasizing about the perfect husband you deserve. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And again, stop fantasizing about this perfect man that you want because I can just guarantee you, the one that you think is going to be perfect is going to have his own flaws. And some of you, I have a feeling, might even be fantasizing about a specific other man already. Someone in your workplace, or the neighbor guy, or the pastor, or whoever it is. And I'm telling you, this is a delusion from the enemy, that this guy is going to be like the perfect man for you and be perfect in every way. This is, I call it a beautiful delusion. It's a beautiful delusion. 2 Corinthians 11:14. God says Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. And he does this. He gets us to believe that this other man is maybe even my soulmate. I think I picked the wrong guy. And it's a beautiful delusion. So the next time you start fantasizing about trading in your husband for a better model, just think, I'm burning the romance novel. I'm just burning it. I mean, don't really do it. But just like kind of remember that. Like, oh, that's right. This is a beautiful delusion. It's unrealistic. It is poppycock.
Which means empty talk or writing or nonsense.
Someone Googled it. Nonsense. That's right. There you go. Empty talk. Okay, number 3. Common sinkhole number 3. this is kind of connected to what we just talked about. This is like the next step. Luring you into getting emotionally bonded with another man. Luring you slowly to get emotionally bonded with another man, which can eventually lead to an actual affair. And this can happen so easily. And unintentionally, no Christian woman especially is going to intentionally go down this road, but it happens so slowly. You have good intentions, you're just chatting, and you're connecting, and pretty soon you're emotionally bonding, and they think, oh, this is my soulmate, which is, again, the beautiful delusion and poppycock, that's right. This is our new word of the day for some reason, I don't know why. I've learned that Satan is very patient. I'll just tell you, some of you don't know my story, so I'll just be, transparent and share my story. People on Facebook Live will be horrified right now. This happened to me. So I was married for 18 years, my first marriage. There was some serial cheating going on by my husband, and I kind of knew that. And I was getting lonely in the marriage because I knew what was going on. And I didn't know how to deal with it, and I wasn't equipped with Bible principles that could have helped me, like Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17, where I need to confront my husband and bring other people in, counselors and pastors. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just grew resentful. And so it was a perfect setup for Satan to tempt me to stray. Now, some of you know me now. Do I seem like the kind of person that would fall for this? No. But he's so patient. He took 10 years of working in the same little news studio, because I was a news anchor and this guy was a news anchor. And we worked for 10 years, just the two of us in this news studio by ourselves for 10 years for Satan to slowly weave the web. And, what are you going to do during the commercial breaks? Well, after the news, you're doing a commercial break, and, you're just going to sit there and stare at the wall. So you end up just talking. Well, how was your weekend? Okay. And after first year, then you move on to, well, he's sharing he got in an argument with his wife, and I'm sharing, well, my husband, I think he's cheating. And then by the 5th year, you're like starting to bond with this person because you're talking to them, you're sharing with them, you're sharing intimate, not sexually intimate, but, intimate details of your life, about how your family's life going. And pretty soon you're like, I think I married the wrong person. This must be my soulmate. Beautiful delusion and poppycock on top of it. But you know what? I fell for this. I am the least likely person. Those of you who know me, I'm like the least likely person to go down this road. And if it can happen to me, I'm just telling you, it can happen to you. Because Satan is patient and sneaky, and he's whispering into your ear that this person is your soulmate. Let me just tell you, this person could have not been more opposite of my soulmate if he tried. I mean, he was a non-believer. Well, I shouldn't go into details because maybe he's watching. I don't know. And kind of a loser. Hi. I'm sure he's not watching. Why would he be watching? Anyway, so I'm just going to say, and kind of a loser, and offensive, and arrogant, and smoked cigarettes, and all sorts of things that was like, they're just like not my bailiwick. And yet I'm thinking, this is my soulmate. Until one day I wake up and go, what? It's like thankfully God must have broken through and went, hello, Debbie Chavez, are you still alive down there? Because I was just like in this beautiful delusion. And it's like I woke up one day and went, first of all, what has happened to me? This is not who I am. And then secondly, I don't even like this person. So what is going on here? But I'm just saying, this can happen to you too. You've got to be vigilant. You've got to be on your guard. So how do you avoid the sinkhole? Don't ever discuss your marriage with another man. Don't ever discuss your marriage with another man. And don't be another man's sounding board regarding his marriage. And I know you think, well, we're just friends. We've been friends forever. I don't think of him that way. Well, trust me, I didn't think of this guy that way until 10 years of sharing my marriage with the guy. No, don't talk about your marriage with any other guy, unless it's a pastor or a counselor or something. Be extremely cautious about working very closely in partnership with another man. In the workplace, be on the lookout. If you are working in a tight partnership with a guy, with the same guy, you will develop a bond. You will develop a bond. Be careful about that. You have to be serious and relentless about protecting your marriage from this slow, subtle slide. Hebrews 13:4, marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and all the sexually immoral. So if you're married now, sit down with your husband and say, let's come up with a game plan. Let's come up with some rules that will protect our marriage. Let's, for my husband and I don't have another guy, even if it's a pastor, I don't have anyone come into my house when my husband isn't home. We just have this rule. He doesn't have any woman come into our house. If the next door neighbor lady comes over with her vegetables like she did this summer, he doesn't open the door and say, come on in if I'm not home. She's standing out there. Maybe she wonders why we're so unfriendly. But because she's breaking vegetables and everything. But he's not opening up the door and letting her in because we just have these rules in our home. This is what we do to protect our marriage. All right, number 4. Another common sinkhole. Getting you isolated from fellow believers who would encourage you to keep going in your marriage. When you get isolated, Satan can so much more easily whisper deceitful ideas into your head about divorce, about having an affair, about spending a lot of money to comfort yourselves. He's just going on and on and on, right? When you're by yourself in isolation. Hebrews 3:13, but exhort one another every day as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. When women who've been coming to SOS drift away, and many times this happens for a multitude of reasons, sometimes really valid reasons, but when they drift away, I'll sometimes bump into them a year or 2 or 3 later. And often it's like, things have not been going well. I'm not saying that SOS is like a save-all, don't get me wrong. But being in tight fellowship is really important. You can drift so easily. You can drift in 2 weeks of being out of fellowship. And that's what I think was so hard during the early stages of the pandemic when we were doing like the total stay-at-home thing and we weren't seeing anybody. That is not healthy for a believer who needs, because we have the devil whispering constantly in our ear. We need the voices of other people saying, no, 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 no. Stay the path. There is hope. I will pray for you. It's not over. Right? Do I get an amen? Amen. This is so hard. Okay. So again, to avoid this sinkhole, discipline yourself to engage in meaningful, encouraging, godly fellowship. I hope at least once a week. Kick your flesh in the butt to get here if you need to. You kick yourself in the butt, whatever it takes. But just do it, because you can't afford not to. Number 5, our sinkhole number 5, getting either you or your husband entangled in a destructive addiction that tears at your relationship. Boy, this is super common. Getting either you or your husband entangled in a destructive addiction that tears at your relationship, like pornography or alcohol or drugs or gaming or food or shopping or whatever the thing is. And boy, this causes so many marriage problems. And often the people that show up at a marriage counselor, the marriage counselor in one session can figure out that this really isn't a marriage problem. It's one person's destructive behavior problem. And it's tearing at the fabric of the marriage. But it's the husband that's drinking way too much, or the woman who's out of control spending and shopping too much, or whatever, and it's tearing at the fabric of the marriage. But it's actually a personal problem. And again, Satan's egging this on. Don't you doubt that Satan is egging on both of you to go to destructive, addictive behaviors, because he knows it's going to tear at the fabric of your marriage. So what do? How do you avoid this sinkhole? If you suspect you or your husband is getting ensnared in an addiction, you've got to courageously discuss this head on as early as possible. You can't keep on trying to, shove this under the rug and pretend it's not there. That doesn't work. Proverbs 28:13, whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. If you need help with, overeating or overspending or gambling or looking at porn, then be courageous and talk with your husband about it. Come up with a plan that it might involve a counselor or a 12-step group. If your husband is the one with a destructive addiction that's impacting your marriage, then pray for God to give you the timing, the words to gently confront him. Ask him to get help. Let him know you're going to be with him all the way, that you believe in him, because we're all broken and imperfect. Can I get an amen on that? Amen. Even though that's not very popular to say amen to that, it's the truth, isn't it? Yeah. We are all broken. And I felt like God wanted me to just highlight this tonight. Marriage is not about finding the perfect spouse. Can I get an amen on that? Marriage is not about finding the perfect spouse, because they don't exist. It's about being willing to support, encourage, and partner with an imperfect spouse as you both grow in love and character. That's what marriage is about. We have this fanciful idea in America that marriage is about finding my soulmate who kind of rides in on a white stallion and has a lot of shining armor. And it just doesn't, and why am I thinking? I don't know. But that's like this fanciful idea that we have, and that's not marriage. Real marriage is two broken people saying, I'm going to work to support you and encourage you and partner with you, and I'm hoping that you will work with me and support me and partner with me and encourage me because we're both broken, but let's grow together. That's marriage. That is marriage. Thank you for the amen there, because that is the truth. That is what marriage is about. Sinkhole number 6. Encouraging you to focus almost entirely on your kids and ignore your husband, especially sexually. This is such a huge instinctive reaction for most moms, isn't it? But it makes your husband feel completely unvalued and actually disrespected. And when your husband feels unvalued and disrespected, guess what? He's likely to subconsciously, medicate his pain somehow, often in some unhealthy ways. Ephesians 5:33, the wife must respect her husband. And again, this is when you are pouring in 95% of your energy into your kids and saying your husband's a big boy, he can take care of himself. He's feeling unvalued, disrespected, inadequate, and he is probably going to self-medicate in a not great way. So what do? How do we avoid this sinkhole? Carve out date nights, schedule them, discipline yourself to carve out those date nights and actually do them. I know it's kind of hard when we have no restaurants open and all that stuff. Why did King County get to move to phase 2 and we are stuck in phase 1? That really aggravates me. Yeah, amen. Exactly. It's irritating. Anyway, poppycock to that. Anyway, but still, there are ways that you can have a date. Even if it's in your living room and you pitch a tent and the kids are in bed and you do something funky and fun and you say, let's pitch a tent in the living room tonight and get sleeping bags. And, well, maybe you young people can do that. I could not sleep on a sleeping bag in the living floor, but, maybe you guys can. Do something fun, take a walk, go sledding up at Mount Baker, whatever. But get out and do something with your husband.